Oh my god, guys. Look at this. After years of waiting, as a model car collector, I finally have mine. The story behind this model is friggin' unbelievable. Let me explain. What I'm about to unbox is one of the most sought-after 118 resin model cars out there. And look, I have no idea why. Because this model is mediocre in terms of build quality and poor in terms of features. You see, it's a resin car where nothing opens. The windows are made out of fragile, easily deformable thin foil that may even begin to peel off if the glue gets old. And it has an MSRP of 120 euros, which is about 40 more than what it should be if you compare it with other 118 resin manufacturers like KK Scale, Automobile, and heck, even GT Spirit is cheaper. But man, take a look at it. It's the 118 1982 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham.
Yo, do me a favor.
What?
Accidentally step on your white sunglasses. We don't wear those over here. This is hip-hop. This is Carhartt jackets. Timberland boots unlaced.
Yup.
This is Champion hoodies. Chicken wings and french fries. R.I.P. pieces on the handball court. This is us still fighting police brutality.
Everybody running their mouth by how they real. Ringtones blowing the doors off album sales. Need to be telling the people about how they feel. So that's how it all started. I'm surprised they failed. Ill music just ain't what it used to. They used to have songs that you could shoplift or boost to. This is the truth too. Listen, we gon' pop in the juice truth and run up in the mall, get loose, boo. Hard streets, hard times, beats and hard rhymes. 5% is teaching the guard lines. 2 turntables, a mixer, few speakers. Haze didn't exist yet. They blew reefer. Pink champagne, plenty of malt licking. Extension cord was ran through grandma's kitchen. Fashion statements, bats were safe then. Now D-Block Royal bash your face in.
Oh man, this is hip-hop. Hands up if you forever a fan of hip-hop. I wake up hip-hop, go to sleep hip-hop. Dream about hip-hop, cause I am hip-hop. Oh man, this is hip-hop. Hands up if you forever a fan of hip-hop. I wake up hip-hop, go to sleep hip-hop. Dream about hip-hop, cause I am hip-hop. I said hip-hop, what? Started out in the park. Man, I knew it was going down from the start. I be backstage with that extra pound in my heart. Butterflies, what a vibe when I tear that whole crowd apart. It's hip-hop, my lips got problems, I spit hot shit. Watch the Kid Rock albums, I hurt verses and bruise flows. Who knows what's next and when? I'm like an NBA game, nothing less than 10. It's like all kind of diseases infest my pen, I'm sick. I gotta spit, I can't digest my phlegm. This gift could be a curse if you don't use it right, so quote me now. Tell half of these dudes goodnight. They let the lion out the cage and drag it from out the cage. Dudes worship them, girls be dragging them off the stage. You dudes weak, you ruin beats, you don't hurt the track. Get your producer my contacts, I'll murder that. Oh man, this is hip-hop. Hands up if you forever a fan of hip-hop. I wake up hip-hop, go to sleep hip-hop, dream about hip-hop.
So why does this model keep selling out so quickly? I think the subject matter is what makes this a unique collection piece. It is a 118 Malaise era land yacht, which are rare to begin with. More specifically though, it is a Cadillac Fleetwood, which few other manufacturers have made in this scale, and certainly no one else has made the 1982 model year, which this one represents. The casting itself has been around since at least 2018, with BoS re-releasing it every year or so in a new color. The first release was in black, which GK Model Car Universe has reviewed, and also how I was made aware of the existence of this model in the first place. BoS then released it in dark red with a white top, which Florida Car Buff has reviewed. The third release was a light blue, dark blue dual color that has been reviewed by Just Some Models. The fourth release in 2022 was a metallic dark blue, and this is the fifth release in gold in 2023. So the story of how I ended up getting this model is a long one. So if you find that boring and want to skip straight to the review, I suggest you skip to minute 8:21. but for those willing to listen. Back in summer 2022, I think it was on the 27th of July, the model was released in that metallic dark blue, and I wanted to buy it, because all the previous colors were out of stock. But I thought I would wait a few more days till the 1st of August to place the order. But within 84 hours of release, it sold out. That's like just over 3 days, not even 4. I wrote to Model Car World asking them what the hell just happened, why can't I find the model on their site anymore, and they were like, sorry, that one won't be coming in anymore. And suddenly these models started popping up on eBay for like 20 or 30 euros more from German sellers, or even double the price from overseas American sellers. And because I still wanted to get the car, I purchased it from one of the German eBay sellers, but he never sent it to me. He cancelled the order a few weeks later, making some excuse saying that of the entire remaining stock he had, which was maybe 4 or 5 models, he wasn't happy with the windows on any of them because they were peeling off, and that he had returned them to the original distributor, Model Car World, and had ordered replacements from them, but that they had gone out of stock during that process, so he never got the replacements. So he refunded me, and that's how I ended up not getting the model. Fast forward half a year or so, late 2022, and I once again saw a pre-order for the model in this new color in Model Car World's preview section. They have a feature there that allows you to sign up for an email notification when that model is available for purchase, so I did. I received that email notification that the 118 BoS Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham was available on the 28th of February 2023 at 5:30 p.m. I read that email around 4.5 hours later at 10 p.m., and I immediately placed the order, because I had learned the previous year's lesson. And they shipped it the next day. On the evening of that next day, 1st of March, 10 p.m., I refreshed the page, and the model was still in stock. But less than 12 hours later, 8 a.m. on the 2nd of March, I refreshed the page again, and it was gone. Like, as a person who works a 9-to-5 job, you would have had 2 evenings' time to purchase it from the original distributor at MSRP before it disappeared. The previous year's release had been around for at least 3 days, if I remember correctly. But this one? 1.5 days. And I have it. And I'm not planning on selling mine, even if I could sell it for twice the price I bought it. By the way, I hate people who buy up all the stock just to sell it for insane amounts later. I mean, this model is overpriced as is. Anyhow, with that being out of the way, let's talk about the car itself. Cadillac, as some of you may know, is named after the founder of Detroit, French explorer Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac. And Brougham refers to a style of carriage where the chauffeur would sit in the open without a roof over his head, while the rich people he's driving around sat behind him in an enclosed cabin. And that style of chauffeuring eventually morphed into the full-size luxury sedans of the 20th century, which finally provided a roof for the driver, but oftentimes still had that separator glass built in for the driver to not overhear the conversation the business tycoons in the back were having. Now, the Fleetwood Brougham, first introduced in the Cadillac lineup as a separate car in 1977, is basically the successor to the Cadillac 60 Special after downsizing had begun at GM, and they had decided to stop making 60 Specials in 1976. But up until 1976, the word Fleetwood had been an umbrella term encompassing both the 60 Special, the Series 75, which was the extended wheelbase, one step short of a stretch limo, and also encompassed the Brougham d'Elegance branding, which used to be just an additional luxury trim level for the 60 Special before 1977, and at one point during those years, Cadillac had an even higher trim level above the Brougham d'Elegance called the Talisman. So they dropped all of that and just went with Fleetwood Brougham 1977 onward, and this is a few years down the line. the 1982 model, which had a grille almost twice the height of the late 70s Fleetwood Broughams. This color is known as Cadillac Nugget Metallic, but some older caddies like the 78 DeVille also call this color Western Saddle Fire Mist. Speaking of, I think the Cadillac Fleetwood and Cadillac DeVille shared the same platform from 77 to 84. So this review of mine, even though it is titled after the actual model, this Fleetwood Brougham, can also be viewed as a review of the 1982 Cadillac Sedan DeVille, for which no 1/18 scale model currently exists. It's basically a lower trim level compared to the Fleetwood, but exterior-wise, still very similar looking to this one. Now this styling with the quad square headlamps first came out in 1977 for the Fleetwood Brougham and 1975 for the Fleetwoods, which had circular headlamps before that. And hell, the taillights have been vertical since the early 60s. And I don't think Cadillac changed the appearance of this car very much for the next 15 years, which is a very long time in automotive history, apart from further downsizing them and making small changes to the grille. The 1992 model year didn't look very different to this, while the Lincolns, be it Continentals or town cars, underwent more radical changes over the years. So here's a look at the front of the 1/18 scale BoS 1982 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, and I think that it looks absolutely ostentatious. You can see it has the Texas plates, 455. In the middle you even have an outline of the state, and then it says BAM on the right, flanked by two bumperettes, which also have matte black paint to simulate the rubber. And I think that the front grille is just done brilliantly. I mean, this is probably one of the highlights of this car. Look at the fact that it looks so realistic. I mean, I think it's even perforated. I think this is like a very thin piece of photo-etched perforated grille mesh. And of course we have the iconic Cadillac quad headlights, and these headlamps are also done brilliantly because they don't have any pegs, which is super important to make them look good, and they also have a nice headlight texture. But I fear they might yellow out over time. Now here's what's interesting. On the first two releases of this model, which were in black and then in red with the white vinyl top, the Cadillac branding was put onto the center right portion of the grille itself. But in subsequent releases, whether it was the blue and light blue two-tone, the dark blue, or this gold, the logo is now placed on the top right of the front grille's chrome frame. Similarly, on the first two releases, the front indicators were transparent, while on subsequent releases onward, they have been orange. And of course, this Fleetwood can't be complete without the legendary hood ornament, the Cadillac crest surrounded by a laurel wreath. Now this is a photo-etched piece, extremely fragile. I don't even know how they managed to mount it, but I just pray that this never breaks, because honestly, I wouldn't know how to fix it if it did. But it looks great. Now on each corner here, you have little bumps. These also exist on the real car, and I first thought they were designed to mount flags, as many of these cars were used by embassy staff, diplomats, senators, and other officials as company cars. But in reality, they are small lights that let the driver know the indicator is blinking. Now you see this silver trim line right here? I know it's a little bit difficult because of the orange color of the car, but see how it travels along the hood and then along the side of the car and then wraps around the back of the vinyl top? I think that's a pretty cool trim. Makes the car look really elegant. And here's a look at the side of the 1982 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham. Everything about this car is square. Even the wheel wells are squared off and not rounded. You've got the Cadillac emblem on the C-pillar, and it also says d'Elegance next to it, and Fleetwood Brougham on the rear quarter panel, on a separate photo-etched piece. These chrome window trims are not separate chrome panels, but just matte silver paint. Which sucks because this is a super expensive resin model and you'd expect chrome application at this price point. But I think opting for paint has something to do with the model being resin and needing foil windows. But at least the door handles are separate pieces made out of chrome. What is nice though is that it says Cadillac on the mirror sculpts. I don't think previous releases of this model had the Cadillac branding on the mirror sculpts. And the back of the mirror sculpt has that sort of matte brushed aluminum look, while the rest of the bezel is polished chrome. And that's not because BoS forgot to polish this, but it literally is like that on the real car. So that's a nice attention to detail. You also have something written behind the front wheels underneath the cheat line here, and it reads HT4100, which is the name of the 4.1-liter V8 engine, which, by the way, is considered one of the worst V8 engines ever made by GM. Originally intended for the 85 Cadillac DeVille, production was rushed to also make it available for the 82 Fleetwood Brougham. The 77 through 79 had a 7-liter, the 80 and 81 had a 6-liter, so emissions regulations forced GM to keep making them smaller, to the point where they became woefully underpowered for a car of this size. I mean, it only had 125 horsepower, and the 0 to 100 kph acceleration took 19 seconds. It was terrible. Even Cadillac knew this, by the fact that they put the 350 instead of the HT4100 for the commercial chassis they built for the ambulance and such. But this is a boulevard cruiser, so you don't have to worry about reliability as much as an ambulance does. And there's also something original about the HT4100. I mean, the later Fleetwoods basically had small block Chevy engines in them. Nothing says Fleetwood like a small block Chevy engine taken from a pickup, right? Now let's take a closer look at the rims to admire the handiwork that went into them. This Caddy has wire wheels with white walls, very iconic for the 80s. I think the 70s Caddies were known for their flat hubcaps with the Cadillac logos on them, which is something I prefer, but I do appreciate the craftsmanship that goes into recreating a wire wheel in a scale model. I mean, these look so fragile, I wouldn't even touch them. You can see we have the Cadillac shields in the middle, so that's nice. And the back end of a Cadillac is of course just as iconic, even more so in fact, than their front ends, because these barely changed over time, especially those vertical taillights. The taillights have large chrome bezels that align with the bodywork. Now look at this, they even designed the side light on the taillight bezels. Each taillight is bisected by a thin white trim line, and in the center you have the Cadillac logo, which has two vertical sword-like extensions, as you can see in this image of the real thing. So it's actually supposed to be split down the middle, and the bottom part is supposed to be the Cadillac shield. But even on this $130 MSRP 118 scale model, that sells for a lot more on eBay, they did not bother to present that detail. But it gets worse. Here on my model, you can see that the decals for the taillights have actually been mounted upside down, because the flat edge is supposed to be at the bottom and the pointy bit at the top. This is the kind of bullshit that drives the resale value way down, or maybe even up, depending on who you ask. But seriously, when it comes to quality control, BoS stands for best of shit. But my model doesn't seem to be the only one with this issue. I think this entire color release is affected. I found an eBay listing, as expected, for twice the price, but in the photo you can see that model has the exact same problem of the taillight decals being mounted upside down. The Texas license plate in the middle is flanked by two reverse lights, which are done very well because they don't have any pegs and they also have a taillight cover texture. Above it, we have a photo-etched Cadillac emblem, However, I'm noticing now that it is not 100% perfectly aligned and slightly slanted, but whatever. But this Cadillac wreath and crest here was also the key fob, so if you moved the shield aside on the real car, you'd find the trunk lock. On a similar note, did you notice that when I reviewed the side of the car that there was no gas cap getting in the way of the body line? That's because the fuel filler is hidden behind the rear license plate. Again, a classic American design, adding that extra bit of elegance compared to the more standardized European car design. And it says Fleetwood in a separate photo-etched piece over here to the right. Now this part here between the chrome tail light surround and the actual car body is a bumper filler. These things were made out of a rubber-like material on the real Cadillacs and would crack over time. So I guess the Germans were right when they say American luxury really is a Potemkin village compared to over-engineered German luxury cars. But honestly, I'd rather cruise around the block in a Fleetwood than in an S-Class, simply because it's such a rare sight over here in Europe. Although if you watch those old German commercials, you'll see how much emphasis the Germans put in showing their luxury cars could drive across bumpy roads or weave through traffic cones. I mean, there was just a completely different understanding of what a luxury car should do, as per the Americans, and what it can do, as per the Germans. Moving up, we have a limousine-style back window with an almost vertical roof. This design would become increasingly more prominent as the 80s rolled on, and downsizing continued, and I personally think that they became more of an eyesore over time, especially on the coupes. That sort of pickup truck-style abrupt ending. Well, here it's more subtle, but I generally prefer the more traditional standard rear windshields. Now the roof, which is supposed to be a vinyl top, has been represented by a matte light brown color, which, when you really think of it, is BoS cheaping out on what is supposed to be $130 MSRP. At this price point, you'd expect some kind of faux leather texture, or at least plastic with some design, but again, how do you attach that to the rest of the car, which is a resin body, right? I think combining different materials is a lot easier to do on a die-cast car than it is on a resin car. But at least they could have given it some kind of texturing instead of the smoothness. The thing about smooth matte paint is that it is very easy to cause and spot blemishes on them, and scratches as well. Which also happens to be the exact area where the main flaws that my model has happen to be. While I was panning the camera around, did you notice them? There are several splotches of discoloration. I actually wrote to Model Car World and sent photos taken from multiple angles. You can see the photos right now. And a customer service guy wrote back to me and he was like, I can't see any discoloration on the roof. Like the hell you can't? Get a better monitor, for crying out loud. I eventually had to paint over the beige dot you saw earlier in the photo with brown acrylic paint to help hide it. And now let's take a look at the interior of this 1/18 scale 1982 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham. And you can definitely see that the interior is one of the better done interiors of resin cars, because here we have a really beautiful looking center console, which is just a sticker, but it does seem to have some depth. We have 2 air vents at the top, and then we have what appears to be a radio in the middle, and some buttons down below. And to the right, we have a big glove compartment with a vent all the way to the right. And if we take a look at the seats, you can see that the seats are also done very nicely. Seats have the button tufting, and the rear bench seat also looks very comfortable. It even seems to have an armrest that can be extended out, but of course this is a sealed resin. And taking a look at the driver's side of the Fleetwood Brougham, you can see that BoS put decent attention to detail in designing the 2-spoke steering wheel. We also get the steering wheel column and the stalks behind it. And then we have the gauge cluster, which is an analog gauge. And to the left of the steering wheel, we also have a couple of extra instrumentation and another air vent. And since this car is an automatic, it does not have a gear shift. The headliner is very disappointing. No sun visors, no grab handles above the side windows. You only have the rear view mirror. But at least you do get a headliner compared to MCG, where there is only the metal roof and you could see the plastic tabs of the windshield bolted on. There should have been map lights on that C-pillar section for the rear passengers, but none have been designed here. The seat backs have also been done very nicely. You can see that they even have the map pockets. Now, the door card itself is quite plain, but it does have a more detailed looking panel built into it, with all the door switches and seat controls surrounded by veneer, and it also contains a door light right where the Cadillac logo is. And next to it is a compartment containing an ashtray. They call this a best of show, but it doesn't even have seat belts.
Oh, come on!
Like with all BoS models, the undercarriage is pathetically flat, with just the fuel tank and exhaust mounted. The only reason you'd want to check the bottom of a BoS model is for the serial number. 298 out of 300 is a very limited production run. Some of the earlier releases of this exact same model in other colors actually had larger production runs. The blue and light blue dual color, showed by just some models, had a production run of 504, while the black one and the red one with the white top had production runs of 1,000. So, in a few years from now, statistically speaking, you should be more than 3 times as likely to find the black one or the red one as this golden one. And that's saying something, because all these years I tried finding a black one for near MSRP, but had no luck. Just completely overpriced eBay listings. Look at this, guys. This is why we collect model cars. To have moments like these, where timeless classics are parked next to each other, right on your windowsill. And of course, what better way to do a comparison than to compare this with the Lincoln Continental Mark V from 1977 and the Chevrolet Caprice from 1987. 3 iconic land yachts, and I have them all. So, to conclude, is this model worth the money? Absolutely not. Is the real car good looking? Absolutely yes. So is the model still worth getting? It all depends on how badly you want a Fleetwood Brougham in your collection. And as long as Best of Show remains the only model manufacturer in 118 that does Fleetwoods from the 1970s and 80s, I'm afraid we as collectors are out of options. Considering that the next smaller scale that makes Malaise-era Fleetwoods is 143 Neo resin models, which also cost around $100, you barely save any money, while the size of your model dramatically shrinks by about 60%. Of course, you'll find plenty of caddies in 164 scale, and they're nice to add to your collection. But they're not really display-worthy pieces, are they? So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching my 200th video. I wanted this to be a special one. And if you're interested in more American land yachts, do check out some of my other reviews I have made over here. Subscribe if you like, take care, and have a great day. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.